Hello ukulele enthusiasts, welcome to another very video edition of My First Ukulele. I am John Allnut, one of the writers and contributors for the My First Ukulele website. I'll leave a link in the description below for more great topics from My First Ukulele. Today I'm going to be discussing tonewoods. And tonewoods are woods chosen for instruments to do with their acoustic properties. Today I'll be comparing how these different materials can change the sound of a ukulele, and that might influence which ukulele you choose to play with or purchase. Alright, so I'm going to give you some different definitions of how tonewoods can sound on an instrument. Some of these descriptions might be punchy, they might sound woody or warm, might have an airy quality to them, smooth, brittle, articulate, boomy, balanced, crisp, bright, crunchy, responsive, and rich. So those are just a few descriptors that might describe the sound quality of woods. And not necessarily when you knock on them, but when you strum on an instrument. And that's that kind of sound that you might get when you compare a couple of instruments together. One thing to consider is the size and the shape of the ukulele. Obviously, a smaller instrument is going to produce mainly higher tones, and then a larger tenor ukulele might offer a little bit more sound and a little bit deeper tones. Alright, so the main thing that's going to influence the sound of a ukulele is going to be the wood that's on the very top, and then a little bit as well on the sides and the back of the ukulele. That's the main place that you're going to get the sound from your instrument. And then you have these braces that are on the inside that kind of go along here. That the way that they construct those is also going to affect the sound of a ukulele as well. This whole thing they call the soundboard. So when you strum strings on your ukulele like this, the vibration goes from the strings into the bridge, and then that's going to go into the wood that's on the instrument here and then bounce around on the inside of the instrument. Some other things that might slightly affect the sound of an instrument are the nut at the top. Sometimes these are made of plastic and sometimes they're made of bone. I think this one is made of bone on this mainland ukulele. Another thing to explore are softwoods and hardwoods. Most hardwoods are going to be inappropriate for ukulele or guitars in general because they're hard to work with. So for those instruments, they typically use a softer hardwood. And some of those might include spruce. That's going to be this lighter wood up here. Some are going to include mahogany or koa, which are all generally pretty easy to work with. There's three things to consider when considering woods on a ukulele. You've got density, hardness, and flexible strength. So the density of the timbre is going to affect how the energy from the strings is absorbed. Softer wood tends to absorb more of the vibration, resulting in warmer tonal qualities, and it has a pretty quick decay. Mahogany is a really balanced wood. Spruce is a little bit brighter and punchier, and so this has a spruce top, and then the sides are mahogany just to help round out the sound of this instrument. So when describing hardness on an instrument, the wood, generally the harder the wood or more mass it has, the brighter tonal sounds it'll have. And then the last part is flexible strength. Stronger, more flexible wood receives more energy from the strings that produce a wider dynamic range, meaning that it can play soft, but it can also play pretty loud at the same time. So spruce is a very flexible wood, and that's why it's so popular. One other thing to consider on a ukulele are the woods used in the bridge. And generally they'll use a harder wood here in the bridge to sustain the amount of weight being pressed down. It also carries the sound most efficiently into the ukulele. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about the different types of tone woods that I have around me. So this is a mainland ukulele and it has a spruce top. This is the most common wood used for acoustic and classical guitars. And when compared to cedar, spruce is lighter and more flexible and has a wider dynamic range and a bright responsive tone. Another cool thing about spruce is that it sounds better and better and better over time. Just the way that the humidity escapes the instrument, it just ends up sounding better. Spruce topped instruments are often paired with softer woods, so here we have a nice medium mahogany and the backs and the sides. Cedar is another really common ukulele wood that's used In my opinion, I like spruce a little bit better, but I have played a cedar solid top ukulele before, and those are great. Mahogany may be the most common material used in guitars and ukuleles that I know of. It's just very medium, and it delivers a good mixture of bright, medium, and low tones all at once. And then you have some Hawaiian woods, such as koa. I do not own a koa instrument currently, but it is pretty neat, and it sounds very traditional when played. It's a hard, dense tone wood that accentuates its like mid and upper frequencies. So it's got good punch and is nice and crisp, and it holds tone nicely when it's strummed. It's usually like a darker color with blonde streaks. All right, so I'm going to show you the divisor ukulele. And this is made of acacia wood, which is really similar to koa. I just think it's a lot easier for them to find and make ukuleles out of, a little bit less expensive. I'll let you hear it here. So when I play this compared to the mainland ukulele, it's going to sound a little bit thin because its body is so thin that it doesn't get to travel back and forth very much. It's like if you were in a small room and you were trying to make music, and then you go to a larger room with more amplification, you'll just notice how much more tone you're going to get. So that's my only gripe with this instrument. I do like the shape. You can put your hands here if you have a strap or don't have a strap for it. But I'm going to demo it for you here. Sounds like this. If I had any regrets about the ukulele purchases I've had, I probably just bought way too many laminate ukuleles. I would say that most ukuleles on the market right now are laminate ukuleles, which means that they take a thin piece of wood and another thin piece of wood and they glue them together. It does make the wood a little more durable, but it lacks a little bit of sound. You'll really notice that when you pick up a solid top ukulele. All right, next up I have my mainland spruce top ukulele. And this is a great instrument. You can see how much wider this is already. I'm going to do a sound demo of it for you. See if you notice it's a little bit punchier than the last instrument. Probably a little bit more volume as well. Alright, next up I have a laminate ukulele right here. I do have an electric Fender Jazzmaster. I love those. Those are great. I got these because firstly they look cool and I needed something relatively inexpensive I could plug in and play with. So this feels like a jumbo sized concert ukulele. So it has laminate wood on the inside. It's got tons of paint all over it, and it has a feels like a layer of lacquer, extremely thick layer of lacquer, and this pick guard on here. And so unfortunately you'll probably notice that it will sound very thin. I only usually will plug this instrument in when I play it, but it'll sound very muddy, thin, and not a lot of tone when I play that, in my opinion. But the neck feels wonderful. It's really nice and chunky and thick, a little bit reminiscent of a guitar. So I'm going to demo this for you now. Alright, next up is my Enya Pro tenor, and I will just tell you right now, it does have a low G on it, so it's not going to sound like the last couple of ukuleles you heard. The low G on this one is beastly, and it kind of overshadows the other strings that we have on here, but just a heads up on that. So this is made of carbon and plastic. Now there are actual carbon fiber instruments that you could say is actually carbon, so I'm not going to test the validity of their carbon on this one, but this is very, very durable, and if you can imagine, it's very, very massive. It's got a lot of heaviness to this material compared to woods. It's a lot tighter, right? And so we should get a nice bright tone when we play this instrument. and I definitely recommend one of these to anybody. I'm not super snobby about ukuleles, but I think everybody should have something like this they can bring outside and not worry about it. You can have it in a swimming pool, or just throw it in the car real quick, even without a case if you must. And you can leave it out in the hot car. It's okay. It's going to change pitch, but it's not going to really degrade over time. So really great instrument. Alright, well, I hope you found today's video useful, and just something to consider whenever you're playing or trying out ukuleles. I would always say play ukuleles side by side so you can compare and see what those sound like. Alright, well, I've been John, and I hope you enjoyed today's content. Please hit like and hit the subscribe button below, and until next time, happy strumming! Bye-bye.